And if there's anyone outside who can hear this who's interested in an interactive session, come on into Bartos Theater. I'm proud to welcome Shiva Ayyadurai, who's a lecturer in biological engineering, and Andrea, who's a lecturer in the program in art, culture, and technology. They're going to do a workshop entitled this, Collaborative Cave Drawings of Social Interactions, Simple Visualizations of Complex Phenomena. So please join me in welcoming Shiva Ayyadurai and Andrea Frank.
So anyway, thank you. So this is actually a work in progress. So we want to, whoever's in here, we want you guys to have fun with this, and we're going to share with you this work in progress where we are. But it's really a collaboration between Andrea's interest that she's going to talk about in education and how indoctrination takes place, and my interest in systems and patterns. So without further ado, the agenda is we're going to give a quick background how Andrea and I came together, because I'm obviously from the engineering and also visual arts, and Andrea's from the art background and photography. And then we're going to go through and give you a simple example of what we call a cave drawing. And then we'd love people to actually participate. There's papers on the sides on a group interactive exercise, and we want you to have fun with this. And then we're going to have some discussion, and we'll close. Okay, Andrea?
Yeah, thank you. All right, good morning. Thanks for being here. I'll start, this might sound or look in this context of this conference a little funny right now. I'm going to show you some actually photographic works that I've been doing, and I'm trying to frame them in a way that they start to make sense in what we're trying to do. I think it's somewhat relevant in order to understand what we're trying to do beyond regular system drawings of larger phenomena. A first project that is relatively recent looks really more at a larger context of global trade and shipping, and looks at how, through photographs that I'm juxtaposing from all over the world of ports and ships, cargo ships, how trade has created these invisible networks or lines crisscrossing the continents and the oceans, and connecting a world that has been earlier much more separated. Another project that similarly tries to pull different pieces of information together is this project called Visions. It's an interview and portrait book that I created here at MIT, interviewing colleagues at MIT, basically, about their research, trying to understand how people working in, let's say, nanotechnology or energy or ecological issues, political issues in the arts, how, when we look at them next to each other, how all these parts of research might be able to, in our heads, come together to find ways of addressing and solving some of the major challenges that we are facing at the moment in the world, really. Another strand of work, my work seems to, in general, and it's a selection that I felt like related to what we're doing, kind of oscillates between looking at the larger picture to looking at things more inside and more personal and psychological. So this project on mass experience came from looking at my German background, and being here in the States, I felt like, whoa, there's something about this that I need to investigate better, especially coming from a family where my grandfather died in the war as a soldier, and there's a whole history there. Now, I used the Hitler salute, which is this very iconic gesture, as a metaphor or as an image to investigate this sense of mass experience. What does it mean to be part of a group and kind of losing some of your own facilities and mental capabilities almost when you're swept along in a certain energy? So these are two identical images always that I painted on in one side. On the right side here, I took out the faces and everything that was still visible except for the arms in order to show that energy. And in the other side, here on the right side, I kind of reinvented what was hidden by the raised arm and just, repainted those faces, trying to tear away that web and show the individual again. So looking at those kinds of relations of group indoctrination in a way. Case study is another series of photographs that looks at a building in Italy. It's a former fascist youth camp where children were going in the summer to be, entertained. This building, though, was inaugurated by Mussolini, and clearly there was a very strong ideological framework around it. So to me that was interesting, and it was very interesting to me to find this building totally closed and not touched or not torn down. So it became for me a metaphor for an inner landscape of a generation that has this past that is quite heavy and hard to grapple with in the present moment. So it's there, but it isn't touched, and the dust clearly is accumulating. Beloved Child, the last series I just want to touch on here, quickly deals with the children. It actually grew out of this last, the previous project where I was literally looking for the kids, but children from all over the world, and how children are maybe educated in when they enter from, like a more sheltered family into group situations. And the images kind of look at how society as a shaping and forming force might be visible more or palpable more or less in the different contexts. And it kind of, wants to pull awareness to this very fragile place like childhood, and how important it is what children are exposed to, what we expose our children to in this time of big learning. That's really my side, and now Shiva will bring in something that probably takes us much closer to our drawing.
Yeah. So anyway, when is this back on, John? So my area of research, has been in patterns and systems across a variety of fields. I've been in and out of MIT for probably about 20 years in about 4 different departments. But one of the core things is, as humans, we typically try to, the common exercise we try to do is we try to understand nature, we try to look at patterns of connection, and we try to put together systems to make sense of that. So in the Eastern systems, right, one of the things people used to do is they used to look at the world, and this is a simple drawing, it's a system drawing, right? They used to look at the world and try to put the phenomenon of existence and how we interrelate to the world. So this is actually a drawing from traditional Chinese medicine, but you can see there are various components in this system, and in this case we're using words: fire, earth, metal, water, and wood, and then the arrows represent how those elements move among each other. So fire creates earth, fire burns to create earth. Within the earth we find metal, and metal condenses on, water condenses on metal, right, and water gives support for wood, and wood gives support for fire. In systems theory you call that a positive feedback cycle. But you also have what's called a negative feedback cycle, where things control each other. So for example, water extinguishes fire, and fire melts metal, metal cuts wood, wood essentially holds earth down, and earth dams water. And though each of those components can represent different organs in your body. So it's a very simple diagram, but it represents tremendous complexity, probably of 2,000 years worth of knowledge. So Andrea and I were very interested, could we take these kinds of drawings and start looking at complex systems? Just to give you some other examples, in the Indian system, they represent the entire universe using this simple drawing. You have the concept of existence and non-existence, Purusha and Prakriti, and then they give rise to what are called different types of phenomenon, and those phenomenon give rise to the body and what they call Panchabhutas, which are these 5 other elements which give rise to these body types, and that's what makes a physical body. Okay, so it's a different type of drawing, but you can see just in a simple drawing we're capturing a tremendous complexity. And if you can see this in the, this is another example of representing it. Unfortunately the diagram doesn't come well, but so that's in the ancient world. In the modern world, in systems biology over in the engineering group, people are trying to use drawings to capture, let's say, how do you model the entire body. So today, in systems biology, if you can see in the diagram on the bottom, on the outside you see molecules which give rise to interactions of molecules, which give rise to cells, which gives rise to tissues, which give rise to the whole organ. Okay, so we're representing other types of phenomena. You could represent it as a pyramid, where on the bottom you have scales, spatial scales. So on the bottom you have genes and proteins, and the next level you have interactions of those, then you have functional modules, and you have whole organs. This is actually a drawing from Peter Hunter's work out in Auckland, but one of the things in systems is you also have spatial and temporal scales. So along one axis you have things going in time. So here someone's trying to model the whole body, but they're looking at one organ system. Let's say the heart, which is made up of various types of tissues, which is made up of various types of proteins, which is made up of various types of molecules. Okay, so you have the spatial component. And here's another example from systems biology also, where you're looking at the interactions of different kinds of proteins. And so I got involved in this many, many years ago. I created one of the first email systems, and this is a drawing of how email works, right? So you see computers talking to modems, which are transmitting emails, and this was back in 1977. And that led me to start taking that to do larger scale systems. I left MIT in '93, and we built a large scale system for analyzing email that came out of the White House, where you have email coming in, that's the input there, and then it gets filtered in some way, stored, and then up on the upper right, you see the analysis take place, and you have outbound going out. So you typically in these systems have input and output. So to make it a little bit simpler, if I can show you different systems, but to let me bring it down to, so sort of, I hope you can see this. So this is sort of getting very simple. So if you look at any system has typically some type of input, it has some type of processing, okay, which is the middle, and you have some type of output. And there's typically some type of storage. So this is a very, very simple drawing. And if you can see this, if you can see back, this is a cow, right? He takes in some food, and he processes it. Digestion is a process. You get some type of output, milk, and you get some, obviously, manure also. And you can get a little more complicated. Here's a factory system. You have raw material coming in red. There's a process that takes place, conversion of that. There's a warehouse that stores it. And then you have some type of finished goods. You can have multiple systems where you have one system communicating to another, right? The input of one flows to the output of the other. The input of one flows to the output of the other. So what Andrea and I wanted to explore was, could we take these very simple drawings and start looking at very complex social interactions? Because typically, for an ordinary person, let's say, to understand how we exist in this world, how we interact with capital flow, money flow, indoctrination, can we represent very simply versus someone having to go read a book by Howard Zinn or Chomsky, or have to go read the New York Times? Can we do it in very, very simple drawings that are still as compelling but can reach more people? So that led to us. So now we're going to move to the part where we're going to actually do this work in progress we're doing. How do you take very complex phenomenon and convert it to something that's simple? And then after that, we're going to give you guys some examples where we want you to experiment on the sides. So I'm going to switch over to this overhead now. I think that should come up. So I'm going to. So Andrea and I are going to do sort of a. Because when we were doing this, the idea, it's some very interesting problems from a visualization. How do you draw things really simple, but make it entertaining and communicate some interesting phenomenon? So we're going to look at what we call a life of someone who exists in modern world today in a very particular way, and then we want to share that with you. And then there's going to be a couple of different aspects that we're going to look at.
Hang on, can you just make one line and focus this one?
Sure. Let me draw the bottom here.
Okay. No, I took it off. It's okay. It's okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
I don't think you can see the bottom.
Oh, we need to focus. Yeah, this thing is a little.
There. Can everyone see that?
We need to zoom out a little bit. Sorry, this was all set up, but something happened. Should we zoom out a little bit?
Let's see. Yeah. I think you just zoom out.
Okay, we're getting there, and let's do autofocus.
There it is. That's good.
Sorry. Yeah.
So
this is good.
hopefully this will be. I'm not the best drawer, so the idea was to do these with simple drawings, so anyone can explain something. So we're going to look at it individual. Let's see, I want to do it here, right?
You can sit here. That's
okay.
what I put aside.
When Andrea and I first met, I did this little drawing for her just to sort of look at it. And so here's an individual. We want to look at the life of someone who exists in his house. Here he is. Here's Joe, and he's sitting at home, and he's watching TV, right? And we want to look at how he interacts with the world. So, for example, if you think about each one of us, there's Comcast. We send, in this case, he's sending some money. That's the input to Comcast. Comcast delivers him let me use green for this. So we want to use money flow with green. So what does Comcast do? Comcast essentially delivers him an image, right? In this case, it's an image, let's say, of a burger. So he's paying for that delivery of that image. He, in turn, goes to McDonald's, pays them some money, and they deliver him a nice burger, right? So the next thing is, a few days go by, and maybe he's getting a picture of a nice little drug delivered to him, because he's probably got some type of disease at this point. So he has to go to CVS, and again, there's an interaction of capital flow here. And then he's getting his little pill delivered to him, right? And, well, this obviously costs money, all of these activities, so he has to interact with his local ATM. And this is an interesting interaction because money flow goes here, and what does he get back? He gets back some percentage, right? Hopefully. Probably these days, probably getting very little back, right? So it's a very simple example of an individual literally paying to exist in this world, and you can see this very simple capital flow going on in these different interactions. And one of the questions we wanted to ask was, what really drives this behavior? What's the underlying thing that keeps him in this? So Andrea is going to sort of give her viewpoint.
So no, we'll keep going back and forth, which should be fun. So we want to see what and we'll draw these as little baggage bubbles in a way. Are we on? Yes, we're on there. Excellent. So how did he get to sitting on the couch right there? He probably took his car to go to work. Here he is, maybe with his coffee. So he's driving to work, and I think he has a computer job. So he's sitting here working on the computer a little bit. At some point he's hungry. He'll go have some food. Right? Maybe another burger, but maybe only fries and his Coke. Let's give him some hair so we recognize him all along. Back from lunch, he's going to have another, like a meeting with a couple of guys. So a little social interaction is happening, which is nice. There's a PowerPoint, just like here. Still sitting. He hasn't been getting around much on his feet recently, but, back from the meeting, just has to wrap up his work. Getting a little tired, but still hanging in there. Just trying to get it done. Another coffee, probably. That's why he has the heartburn up there. And then he just takes the car back home. So the interesting thing is the whole infrastructure, everything around him has been set up in a way that he really doesn't have to move on his feet, which makes him tired enough to not want to move in the evening. As we all know, it sometimes is harder to go for a run or do anything active when we have been sitting all day. So this is one loop here, and there are hundreds of those that have happened. Maybe in his family, he grew up as a kid who, parents would just order food and go to fast food places. So that's what he knows. He hasn't learned to cook for himself and so on. So that is one aspect here, and there's a lot of those hanging down here, weighing him down to keep him in his place, really. Shiva?
So that gives us an idea of the thing that's driving him psychologically and motivating him to stay in this. The other component of this is, can we look at how, now remember, this is one little part of the matrix here, but there are other people also out here, right? And this is, he lives on a neighborhood, so there's a lot of people like this. So, as we look at, what's been happening with the market collapse and these kind of things, it'd be interesting to understand how this relates to a larger picture of what's going on. So if we think about, there's another world up here, right, which he may be completely oblivious to, and we wanted to look at that. And that's a world of, you can call it a world of Wall Street or whatever we want to call it, but there's another behemoth up here. And these worlds are feeding up into that. How would we show hierarchy if we think about spatial systems? So there is a bigger Mickey D's up here, right? Which this feeds up into. The local franchise is essentially sending money up here, and these guys are delivering him, whatever the buns, the napkins, etc. down here. And then this is also feeding into a banking system. All of these little guys down here are feeding up they're feeding up their money up here, and I want to make this a thick arrow because there's a lot of money going up here. But there's actually very little money coming back down here, right? Back to him from a savings account, and all these people sort of feed up into this. So this is essentially our banking system up here. And what gets very interesting is obviously there's a media the media up here, the media agencies, and Comcast feeds up to them, and they deliver them different types of ads and media. Oops. Coming back down here, I want to use different colors here. And then finally, there's obviously the bigger chain of drugstores up here, let's say the bigger CVS. And then obviously there's some type of Pfizer. I don't know if you guys can see. Is this showing up?
Yeah.
Pfizer, the drug companies. Now, what goes on among here? Well, there's a lot of capital flow here. We have the bank that he's depositing his money into. They're obviously putting money into McDonald's, which gives back some percentage interest to them. They're putting money into CVS. All the entities he's dealing with, they're essentially using his money and delivering those into these different entities. And they're delivering something. But ultimately, there's a big sort of cloud of capital storage from a system standpoint that's being created here for the banks. So the concept here is there's a set of activities going on up here, but there's a whole nother world up here that's operating on a much, much larger scale where capital is essentially moving.
And not much great stuff is coming down. We're getting buns and, gene-manipulated potatoes
Right.
so it's an interesting network over there. What I want to look at here is how did he get to want to actually sit in front of a television, and what's so interesting about that? And I need to kind of so we're looking at back in the timeline a little bit, and we're looking at where he might have been a while ago and very long ago, and starting over here. When we were still sitting around the fire as a clan and having a very social life because we were all dependent on each other in a way that we didn't have television and artificial light to make us distribute too much. So here we are together, kids hanging out, everybody. Here he is, our friend. I kind of want to give him a little bit of a red head because this is all his needs and emotions in a way, and I want to give that link here. From the fireplace here, let's go to a little bit of technology. Let's go to the radio and how now the nuclear family is here and everybody is enjoying sitting around the radio, and we're still together here doing our thing, having it be a little social. Here he is, having, like an experience that is definitely different from our cave drawing, from our early times, cave drawings we're doing later, being down here in the caves, to here, and clearly like this clan situation split up into many of those, right? So we have all these nuclear families that, connected all over the place. So we have this kind of idea of multiplicity, but we're trying to keep focused on our friend here. And I think this is where we want to really end, and we feel like this is all the drawings that we've done so far. We have piles of drawings, and they get so far until we can't see anything anymore because we keep talking and we keep changing and adding lines, and we're stopping here in order to keep it still somewhat clear enough to make our point and to inspire you to please go and do your own cave drawings. Do you want to set up the computer over there? What we'd like to do is have you go up groups of 2 or more, and whatever works for you. But I think it's nice to have that conversation. If you are on your own, go to your neighbor and say, well, what are we working on? We have a list of themes that you could pick one off, and if you have one that you absolutely want to do that's not up here, go ahead and do that, of course. We'll come around, we'll talk with you about them. We will actually photograph some of your drawings and project them a little later, and maybe you can just come and talk about them. And if you don't want to talk about them, that's fine. We might talk about them. We hope to kind of give a little bit of that experience, this very fun and inspiring experience that we've been having with this collaboration, and expand that to you. So do you want to say a few?
Sure. I mean, I think there's markers there, so we want to engage you. One of the things is in systems theory, these arrows and things, you can also eventually make them computational. So you can, create layers of them, not only drawings, but given it's an MIT environment, one of the approaches we want to do is see if we can take those, and actually as you look at money flow or capital flow, can you actually put models behind them? So you take these very simplistic drawings and you start layering in other types of mathematics and computation, perhaps on the web. But where are the markers, Andrea?
They're markers.
So the markers along the edge. So just choose a topic that you like, and just have fun with it, and see what it takes to just do simple drawings And as you're doing that, I'll read them out so you guys can go. One is maintaining personal health and the healthcare system. You know, what does it take for you to live and be healthy? How do you balance career and family? You know, what are the challenges someone faces? How do you set up your home? You know, for example, just getting your home set up and all the things that you have to do to make yourself feel competitive to your neighbor or have your car and your whatever it is internally. How do you be an eco-friendly individual? But just start. So we want people to participate, so have fun. This is a workshop. You can do it as groups of two.
Try to do two.
So choose one or two people.
It's just more fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And 3 is fine, and 4 is fine, but just go ahead. And if you're not happy with what you're doing, just move a little bit to the left and right and keep moving. Keep drawing. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect.
I just want to ask something.
Yes.
We will take pictures, and then we're going to put them up on the web later on also. So